Hello, this is Jacqueline from Jack Knits, and today we're going to learn how to backtrack or undo our knit stitches in order to fix a mistake further down the row of your knitting. So let's take a look how to do that. Okay, so knitting mistakes are inevitable. We all make them, and there should be an easy way to fix them, correct? Well, there is, and it's called tinking, or actually T-I-N-K, which is knit spelled backwards. And what that basically is backtracking or undoing your stitches one by one in your row or round of knitting in order to backtrack and fix a mistake that occurs further back on your knitting round. Or you can do it for a couple rounds if you want to correct a mistake a couple rows down. It's much easier than undoing all of your stitches, pulling out your needle and frogging back, and then having to place your stitches back on a needle. So I'm going to show you how to do it with the basic knit and purl stitches, and also how to do it with other stitches like increases and decrease stitches as well. So first, let's take a look at just basic knitting and purling stitches. So here I've started a project, a 2x2 ribbing for hat. And let's say that now I have realized that further back in the row I've made a mistake and I need to backtrack to correct that mistake. So here's how we're going to tink back our knitting, or basically one by one undo our stitches and get back to that mistake so we can fix it. So if you take a look at the last stitch that you knitted here, you've got the yarn wrapped around your needle, and then right below that stitch is this hole that my finger is poking through here. So we want to take our left needle and stick it in that little hole that's right directly below your stitch. Put it in that hole and slide that stitch over to the left needle. And at this point you can release that stitch from your right needle and pull your working yarn to unravel the stitch there. And now we have completely successfully undid that last stitch on your needle. So we've tinked back one stitch. So now you're going to just do that again and again, backtracking as many times as you need to get to your mistake. So let's do this other knit stitch here. Put your needle into that hole under your stitch, release it from your right needle, and unravel it from your working yarn. Okay, well, their next stitch is a purl stitch, but the very same principle follows. You just have to look a little bit more closely for that hole. So that hole is there, even though there's a bump there. We're going to still use that hole right below that stitch. Insert our needle in that, release it from the right needle tip, and unravel it from the working yarn. And that's how you're going to tink back a purl stitch. Okay, and then you'll just kind of keep going in that direction one by one, releasing and undoing those knit stitches, and you can get back to correct your mistake. Okay, so that's basic knitting and purling tinking. So what if you have some more different type of stitches, like an increase or decrease stitch, or even slip stitches and yarn overs? How do you tink back for those, and how do you recognize those? So let's do that a little bit. Let's create some decrease stitches together and then tink back those stitches and see how we do that. So one very common increase stitch is a decrease stitch is a knit two together. So let's do a knit two together here, a decrease stitch. And let's do a couple purl stitches. And then let's do a slip slip knit stitch, which is also a decrease stitch but leans in the other direction. So let's do a slip slip knit stitch, which is another decrease. And now let's talk about how to tink back those stitches. So here on this slip slip knit, this is one that requires a little extra step, but we're, instead of going in through that hole the front way, we're going to kind of tuck back underneath these stitches in the hole underneath, but from the back to the front, and go through both of these stitches, 1 and 2. So both of those stitches that we previously knitted, put those on our left needle. Again, release it from your right needle and unwrap it. So now that one stitch now is back to being 2 stitches, but you'll notice that the stitches are orientated incorrectly on our needle. It's going from the front over to the back, and it's supposed to go the other way. So to quickly fix that, remember that you can just move them from one needle to the other, and then put them back on your left needle by just twisting them to reorient them correctly on the left needle. So now they're the right way, and we can continue to tink back. So let's tink back these 2 purl stitches going in that hole beneath the stitch. And now we've ran across our knit 2 together decrease stitch, and we're going to do that, tink back that just in the same way by finding that hole underneath the stitch, but we got to make sure that we're going all the way through that hole to catch the 2 stitches that we knitted together. So once your needle is through that hole and catching both of those strands of yarn, we can release it from our right needle, unravel it, and there we've got that decrease stitch back to being 2 stitches. Okay, so now let's talk about how we might undo or tink back some increase stitches. So let's say we want to do a knit in the front and back as an increase stitch. That's a common way to increase. So let's do a knit in the front and knit in the back of the stitch. That's one good increase stitch. And then what if we also did let's purl these two, and now let's do a make one right or make one left, either one. So which is increasing by picking up and adding a stitch to this strand between here, placing it on that needle. This one's a make one left. And there's that increase. Okay, so now we've got a couple increase stitches that we want to tink back to fix a mistake back here, let's say. So this is a regular stitch. I'm going to tink back here, and here we see this increase stitch, and it's basically a new stitch in between these other 2 stitches. So to undo that, we basically just want to get rid of that increase stitch. We don't want that stitch anymore. We're backtracking and removing that increase stitch. So we basically just need to take it off the needle and unravel it. Pull your working yarn to unravel that stitch, and now that stitch is gone, and you're back to just your regular stitches. So now we can tink back some more knitting, tink back a purl, another purl stitch, and now you can see I've got this increase stitch which I did with a knit in the front and the back. So basically this first one that's on the edge of our needle, that's the stitch that was created when we knit it into the back of the stitch. That really is the extra stitch that we created when we knitted that, and we created that increase stitch. So that is the one that we want to just plain eliminate, just get rid of it. So that last stitch we could just take off our needle and unravel it. Now that extra stitch is gone, and we can continue to just undo the knit stitch and get back to unraveling or undoing the stitches that we need. Okay, so those are basically pretty simple. Now, the easiest stitches to undo are slip stitches and yarn overs. So let's do a couple of those on this row and then look at how to backtrack those. So let's purl these couple, and let's say we had at this point a yarn over, and then we knitted a couple more, and then maybe this one was a slip stitch, and then we purled one. Okay, so now we've got some slip stitches and some yarn overs in our mix. How do we recognize those and how do we undo them? Well, let's tink back this regular purl stitch, and now we can see that this last stitch was not worked. You see that it was just slipped onto that needle. So now to undo that, all we really need to do is just slip it back to the other needle. There really isn't any undoing. We're just basically undoing what we did, which was slipping it to the right needle. So now we're just going to slip it back to the left needle. Now let's undo this knit stitch. And now you can see that we came to a yarn over. And again, to undo a yarn over, we just want to unyarn over it. Just undo the yarn over. So just undo that, just unwrap it around your needle, and you successfully eliminated that yarn over, and you can continue to tink back to prior stitches to correct. Okay, so those are some of the basic stitches that you might run across when you're trying to backtrack and correct a knitting mistake. Now, if you are working with something a little bit more complicated like a brioche stitch, or even like the fisherman's rib stitch, which incorporates knit one below, anything that kind of incorporates additional yarns in your knit stitch, those are difficult to kind of tink back to. So if you are concerned about making mistakes in that type of knitting, especially brioche knitting, I would recommend that you put in a proactive lifeline. And what that means is that you want to put in some scrap yarn in your knitting before you make a mistake. So when you need to eventually frog back your knitting when you make a mistake, you have a lifeline or a piece of scrap yarn that's going to hold those stitches and you can frog back. I have a full video explaining exactly how you do that. I'll have a link in the upper right hand corner. Highly recommend doing that for any type of complicated knitting where you're really nervous about making a mistake and knowing that it will be very difficult to frog back or tink back on those types of knitting projects. Okay, well, I hope this helps you help fix your mistakes that you run across in your knitting. Very easy to do. I do it all the time when I need to just backtrack a little bit and continue. You can do that just for a few stitches, or you can do that for a few rounds or rows if you need to. It might take a little bit longer, but it's certainly easier than frogging completely back. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you like these videos, don't forget to subscribe and be notified for future videos all about knitting tips and techniques. Really fun creative patterns and fun new stitches to try. Happy knitting, everyone.